Welcome to On the Bench. I'm Brendan Sonnone. I'm joined by Chris Nee doing his best Adam Schefter impersonation. Zach Blostein, clearly fresh out of the shower. Thanks for doing your hair, Zach. You look great. Welcome to On the Bench, guys. Hi.
Hey, what's up?
It's not just game week. It's like 2 days away. We're here.
Thank God.
Yay. The long interminable off season is over. A shout out to our sponsors as we get going here. First off, Chattanooga Whiskey. It's football season, tailgate season. Pick yourself up a bottle of Chattanooga Whiskey. All throughout the state of Florida, local liquor stores. You can go to some big box chains as well, and they'll have it there. Be on the lookout. They have a maple syrup cask finish bourbon they just released. I'm not sure how to get my hands on it just yet. I'll let you guys know. But be on the lookout. I got a press release for that yesterday. I'm sure that'll be really, really interesting and probably really delicious. So Chattanooga Whiskey, always doing really cool stuff. It's just another fine example of it. And then the Turner Group. They sponsor our Buyer Sonnone segment. Colin and Amy Turner do an awesome job in the home buying, home selling market in Central Florida, but really throughout the state of Florida. You guys know the spiel at this point. Good people, work hard, a lot of resources. Zach can attest to having really great experience with Colin directly, and I'm sure his family's going to make a nice amount of money coming up in football season here, renting out the old I was going to say press box, but the townhome.
Yeah, I think they're planning to use it a lot during the football season.
Oh, your parents, like you're actually
Yeah, they want to be comfortable. They don't want to be in a hotel when they come up. So
that makes sense. Well, they're not going to make money, but you're going to save money.
Yeah, but they another interesting part about Tallahassee is that like when they're in session, a lot
the
of
government.
When the state government's in session, a lot of these representatives and stuff come up and rent Airbnbs for months on end. So they lucked out with that. So that was pretty cool.
Very cool. Sorry, do not disturb going on there. As Chris is.
You're so focused.
Alabama spelled. Did you do this, Chris?
Carry on.
No. Let's talk about it. Can I post this?
I didn't spell it wrong. I submitted it with the correct spelling, but the spit back to me, yes, was Alabama.
Oh, you're trying to.
Chris is using ChatGPT.
Maybe.
This is Chris's take on ChatGPT is to use it for graphics that are spelled wrong. I like that. I just want to add the file here so we can look at it.
Can't trust the aliens, despite Zach's beliefs.
Dude, you're using it to make your graphics.
Right. That's
Alabama.
I'm like, damn it, did I spell it wrong? And I'm like, no, I didn't spell it wrong. Why is it?
I feel like that's how Alabama fans would probably spell it.
That's what I was going to make that joke. I decided not to. There's not enough vitriol and hate and angst.
You can find Zach in Lot 7.
Oh, we're off to a great start. Hey, a real quick source of tension that I'm feeling towards both of you right now. You both have used. I've created two monsters. You both have in the last.
Yesterday, do not even act like you weren't.
I don't like that you're both using the word projection against me lately. I don't like that.
You taught us how to use the word clearly.
I knew how to use words since probably about 7th or 8th grade, but like you definitely were doing it yesterday. So
yeah, you're putting it on display so often that it's so hard to not use the word.
What's the weather update? I'm sure you've got anxiety over that.
I don't know. I think it's going to rain tomorrow. I wasn't being anxious. I was being grumpy.
It might rain in Florida during the summer. Holy shit! Really?
It's not. I don't think it's the summer anymore, man. It's nice and crisp. Zach, are you coming up for the game?
I am.
You're getting to enjoy some like Florida fall weather. It's here.
Yeah,
baby.
I'm excited. Nice. It's been too hot. I'm going to the UCF game tonight.
Go Knights.
I think they're going to get beat by Jack State, 20-point underdogs.
They're fighting Charles Kelly's.
Real quick, there is a really nice slate of games as we dip our toe into football season. Farmageddon was great last week, and the Johnson family fighting each other was kind of football's back. But tonight, Boise State at USF, that's fun. Jacksonville State at UCF will be fun for rooting interest for myself. I think Jacksonville State and the Fighting Charles Kellys will be fun as well. And then we get to to Friday, and we get where is it? Auburn at Baylor. And then obviously this weekend has a ton of really great games. So it's here. It's fun. Florida State, Alabama, number 8 Alabama coming up. And I want to talk about that. We're going to preview the game here. That's going to be what this podcast is. And also kind of just do a final like season preview, a check-in for us as well before things get going. Let's talk about the depth chart first, though, guys, because that was something. I'm going to pull it up here. Buyer Sonone, sponsored by
the Turner Group.
Fanbase's depth chart reaction.
I guess I'm Sononing it. I'm not really sure which one lands on a Buyer Sonone there, but I think I'm Sononing it. Not everyone, just the loud ones on Twitter.
I'm buying it. I love the reaction. I'm speaking about the positive reaction to Donnie. How do you say his last name? Hybert. I saw a lot of memes and just some cool stuff with like his like special teams highlights. It got me hyped.
Got you hyped, Bert. So here's the thing that I'm going to just be transparent in a source of angst for me. You all know I love angst. It's not me versus them.
I'm sure this is going to be really popular, Brendan.
What were you expecting? What were you expecting? Especially the people who pay attention to what we do all off season. The projected depth charts we do, the intel. Like I went back and I looked at the projected depth chart we did the morning of, and that's with no practice access. It's just with us talking to sources, taking tidbits from here and there and combining it. I think there may be of the 50-something players that were mentioned, like 7 variations of a guy who like Marcus and Douglas wasn't on his depth chart. He's going to play.
Yeah, chasing for that receiver was an unexpected because he was expected at tight end.
Even that we had talked about. People asking about Cam Davis. It's like
I think you're.
It makes me think I'm just yelling into an echo chamber sometimes, and make me say, "What's the point?" And that's more of an internal. I'm projecting.
You think repeating every time Cam Davis came up that we don't think Gus Malzahn views him very favorably didn't really land with some folks.
I think you're also, Brendan. I think you're speaking to a more general audience because you got to remember when the official depth chart releases, a lot of that reaction is just more casual fans.
Dude, I know the Twitter stuff. I'm talking about our faithful, lovely Knowles 24/7 subscribers. There are people who are frequently in threads and read. I know a lot of our content that were surprised by or acted surprised, and that's what I don't understand. And even the pushback of like, we did the season win share total a few days before, and there was pushback over like, you guys think they're only win between 7 and 8 games? Like, one, that's what Vegas says. It's generally where we toe our line is like what Vegas says. But 2, it's like, where do you think that was based off of? Like, so I guess I don't understand what people were expecting to see with the depth chart, and I don't understand really what necessarily got them fired up.
I think it was like a few walk-on names like AJ Cottrell and Donnie Hybert showing up after, we had kind of mentioned, like we mentioned Smoke White at safety as a potential like 2D player. And I think maybe, a name coming out of left field that we really haven't talked about at all could be, part of the shock. But I don't know. I think overall, if you look at this depth chart, it's like, okay, it's you look at certain positions, you look at the depth on it. It's somewhat concerning. And I think that's probably where most of the angst comes from, seeing it all in one place on paper. I know we've talked about all these things, but
we've written them too. We've done projected.
Yeah.
It has been on paper in black and white. This is my point.
I think there's a degree of the fan base likes being angsty and angry about things.
That might be what we're coming.
No, don't say that.
I mean, that's just human nature in general. It's not just this fan base. That's everyone. I mean, I've started. How many times have I been angsty in this podcast so far? And
John Kapuchis talked linebackers a week ago, not his most recent time talking with us. Said he had 6, and we said AJ Cottrell was the 6th one he was referencing in that conversation with Caleb LaValle when he comes back from injury being the next guy up. So, like, AJ being one of the 6 linebackers really shouldn't be that much of a surprise since the position coach said it last week before they put out a depth chart.
I think the omissions are what are probably more disappointing. The Cam Davis one, I'm not surprised about. What was that?
KJ Sampson's another one.
KJ Sampson and Tay Diggs are the 2 that, like, you probably needed both. I know, not surprising, but disappointing. Disappointing, surprising are 2 different things. Yeah, Chris called that shot a while ago. And listen, I think we've all discussed at some point, it was like the roster, the way the roster was comprised is that he was going to be a really important player for you, for better or for worse. And if that's not someone you're banking on, like that's a toughie. And just and it's also just a piece of paper, guys. Like some this isn't gonna be perfectly like. Sorry, my dog's being annoying. This isn't gonna be like a perfect indication of what the rotation is. It's a rough one, but it's not flawless. Like I'm sure they're gonna put Demonte Diggs on the field on third down. Probably. I shouldn't say sure. So I don't know. That was just one thing I just want to get off my chest is I did not understand specifically our own loyal listeners and readers being surprised by it. I thought we did I tried really hard to prepare people for it, and I feel like maybe let you down.
To me, the truth of the depth chart is that like the 11 that they like on offense, and that 11 is a little bit more like 13 because they list more than 11 positions. Those guys are very well defined.
Even that guy was getting pushed back. They've listed more than 11 positions on offense for years. They've always had a tailback.
Yeah, they've been like the two running backs. One is Roydell and Gavin Sawchuk. The other one's Jalen Lucas and Usman. And in that case, those two guys are better pass catching running backs. So I think that's why, like Lucas and Chroma are nothing alike physically in a lot of what they do as players, but they both catch the ball really well. So therefore, they're listed together. Chroma not being a first line guy or an or guy was a tad bit surprising to me just because he had such a good camp. But like, I still think he's going to play a ton.
I do too. That's there is a part of like I remember Norvell talking about this last year. It's like it's just a piece of paper. Also, you can then say, well, why do you do it? And I'm happy they do it because I think it is generally a pretty good indication of what's what for them. And it's has Alabama released a depth chart yet? Like I'd much rather this.
They have not as of this morning when I checked.
That's just so lame to me to not. And
which is weird because I believe they did last season. I may be incorrect on that, but I could have swore I checked in an old note package for last year that they had done that.
The coach is playing these games. It's just.
Yeah. I mean, the Alabama depth chart is not some great mystery or surprise. They are one of the schools in the country that return a great deal of talent, and the few pieces that they added, a majority of the pieces that they did add, like there were certain guys they added that it was clear cut they were adding this guy to put him this place on the depth chart. Our Bama site, Bama 247, did a projected depth chart, and I think it's pretty fair. Now the question is which running back wins out. Like they even did an or for Richard Young or Daniel Hill at running back. Obviously, the news of like Jaden Roberts dealing with concussions, Tim Keenan. Jaden Roberts is a offensive guard. Tim Keenan's a defensive tackle, both dealing with injuries. That alters things a bit because those are both projected starters on such a thing. But in general, Bama, there's far less mystery about the Alabama roster scheme, even though they did have an offensive coordinator change and whatnot, versus what FSU with 2 new coordinators and 49 new players and a multitude of new starters is going to be.
All right, so I do want to preview Alabama. You mentioned a few injuries. We'll get to that. Before we do that, like I think just a more macro look at the season ahead for Florida State, our expectations, what we're looking for, those kind of things. I think this is a good check-in before the season starts. And you mentioned unknowns with the depth chart, Chris, with Alabama and some ors there. I'm going to focus on a word for Florida State, ifs. And I think generally my time as like a sports fan has been the fewer amount of ifs presenting a team, the better they are, more often than not. Because the idea that all these things are going to break your way, just generally that's not how it goes.
I feel like this one has several.
This is a team with a ton of ifs, Florida State.
If Tommy Castellanos is a runner time is of the essence.
What is your biggest if for Florida State? Each one of us are going to go around the horn, but your biggest if, Chris, go ahead.
If they stay healthy, especially offensively on the offensive line. I think they're in very deep trouble if the offensive line gets banged up. I think they can maybe survive one on the interior, but I don't think they would be very good if they have multiple injuries. And so much of what they're going to try to do offensively, which I think is run the ball, use Tommy as a runner, is going to key off of that offensive line group being good. And they brought in 4 guys to add along with Richie Leonard to be their primary 5. They need that 5 to stay together and stay healthy throughout the year.
I think mine is if the D-line is good. I think if they're creating havoc, that defensive unit, I think can be pretty high level. But I think, once you start looking at the depth of the D-line, like you really need those starting 3, James Williams, Darrell Jackson, and Jason Jenkins to be dudes for you, to really complete that defensive unit and allow, Tony White to unlock everything that he can accomplish with this scheme.
Mine is if you can run the football effectively. That's what Gus Malzahn wants to do. This points to Chris talking about the offensive line staying healthy. I think that's part of it. You also need to be good. You need Tommy Castellanos to be a good runner and a willing one. And if that happens, then I think you get a running back who can also emerge too. And that's Usman Chroma. Like that's a formula to winning 8+ games. So there are plenty more ifs. Maybe I'll write about that later. The many ifs of Florida State going into the season. What scares you guys the most? Like what gives you the most? We're gonna tap into the Sonone anxiety meter. Like what gets you there? What gets you in my world of anxiety?
Go ahead, Zach.
Depth at receiver, depth at offensive line, like Chris said, depth on the D line. I think if you look at those like first team units, you feel pretty solid about what they're going to be. But I mean, one injury, if you go 2 injuries, I mean, we're talking about a drastic difference in the outlook of those units and what they can accomplish. I think, Chris said, I think O-line's the one where they can't afford to lose anyone. But I mean, wide receiver, like I think Deuce Robinson and Score White, they both had injuries throughout the offseason. Like those 2 guys need to stay healthy for your offense to hit the level it needs to this season. And I think that's kind of a big if with just, especially with a guy like Score White, how all the injuries he's dealt with throughout his career to this point. And then obviously a quarterback. I think we all think that FSU's best chance to win more games than it should this year is with Tommy Castellanos at the helm of the offense. I don't really think the other 2 quarterbacks are ready to step up and go win you football games. I don't think that they're kind of built for Gus Malzahn's offense the way that Tommy is. And, I feel like the offense is kind of catered to him. So, yeah, I mean, I think depth scares me the most about this team, especially offensively.
Yeah, I agree with Zach a great deal. I'd add on Tommy. Part of that is you need him to be the best version of himself. The 23 runner to 24 passer would be a nice combo. I'll go with something different, though. I do worry if Alabama blows their doors off and just shatters confidence out of the gate.
That was going to be mine.
I know 25 is very different than 24 as far as the roster, and there's not a ton of carryover and a lot of new staff. But there are enough guys that were around for the debacle of 2024 to 2-10 that I think there would still be a level if Alabama was to just mollywop you, that like you would really, really struggle to handle that. Plus, there's a degree of, because of the fact that you don't really play another quality opponent of any sort until the last weekend of September when you travel to Virginia on a Friday night. It sort of is just going to sully for about a month. We're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to hear about it. It's going to be written about. It's going to be talked about. It's going to be asked about. There's a struggle with washing away the feeling against an East Texas A&M or a Kent State.
Yeah, there's nothing you could do in those games, right? Like even by winning by 100 wouldn't solve anything.
I don't expect them to beat Bama, but I do want to see them come and compete at a high level, and I want to see some proof of concept of what they're trying to be offensively, what they're trying to be defensively, and I want to see guys just essentially exerting every ounce of their energy in that game and making the effort to be the best version of themselves and let the chips fall where they may. And if you lose because you did everything you could and you came up short. Don't roll over and play dead because it got tough. And I don't think this team's that. I think there's a degree of, especially on the defensive side of the ball, well, heck, really on both sides of the ball, I don't think the coordinator is going to allow that. I don't think either of them are really capable of stomaching that. And I think there's a degree of understanding walking in the door. We're trying to cut that bad stuff out of the system of FSU and get back to playing higher quality football. But there's also a degree of sometimes human nature can take over if things get really bad. And if they go bad fast, sometimes that happens and it gets sideways and you get buzzsawed. I'm hoping FSU doesn't do that. That's probably the thing that I worry the most about. I don't expect it, but I do worry about it.
And that was going to be mine. And if I could just add to that too, it's like the long-term or the big picture, I guess, consequence of that too, beyond just the scope of like this season and things snowballing. You talk about all of a sudden being faced with this financial crisis too. I think that could come from just one bad game. That financial crisis would be Mike Norvell buyout all of a sudden becomes a thing. Fan attendance with the stadium you just spent, $500 million renovating, booster interest waning, probably having to make a lot of wholesale changes throughout the program, and that's just all on the table if things go really poorly this season, and there's a chance for it to devolve. And again, I don't think that's the likely scenario, to reiterate Chris's point, but that is a source of fear and anxiety and covering this program. It's like, oh, this can get ugly really fast and manifest in some pretty bad things for long term. So playing well against Alabama is essential. Not winning, but playing well and showing growth, I think, is really, really important. Florida State, let's see. What gives you confidence? Let's be positive after that. What leads you to believe that this could be an 8-9 win whatever team?
For me, it starts with Tony White. I think he's the right messenger that they need to bring in. I think he's a very talented football coach. I think he's a guy that does more with less, which is kind of a necessity because the depth and the talent of that defensive side isn't bad at the top line, but it's not great overall. It's not one of those where you can roll out 44 guys and 22 to 33 guys and feel great about it on that side of ball. But I have an odd confidence with Tony. I think he was the right hire for the direction they need to go on that side of ball for this program. And I also think he's a good football coach.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's that first team offensive unit. I think they're legitimately good when all healthy. And if they stay healthy, like I feel like they can go and win you some football games. I think you have some high level players there with Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White. The O-line's kind of an unknown, but I mean, we've seen a lot of film on these guys, a lot of veteran pieces, and you feel pretty good about what they're going to be. I don't think they're going to be a special unit by any means, but they should not reach the lows that we saw last season for that group. And then, I feel like the stable of backs, out of all those guys, you should be able to find one. And I'm hoping it's Usman Kroma, because I do think he's the highest level talent in the room. But you should be able to find one that can be a productive player for you in the backfield, in this run-heavy Gus Malzahn scheme. So, yeah, I think that gives me confidence. If they can stay healthy, I like that unit. I've heard they've done pretty well in practices as of late.
I have a level of cautious optimism that the thing Mike Norvell has tried to emphasize with his team and tried to plant these seeds of it being competitive and being willing to fight, desperate, edge, whatever the buzzwords are. I have a feeling it's more than just talk with this team. We have to see. It has to present itself on Saturday and then over and over again throughout the season, regardless of results. But I do have a level of confidence that I think this team's going to fight. And I think guys like Randy Pittman fit that bill for me. I think some of the linebackers, I think, have kind of been forged through. Sorry, I got emotional there. Got forged through moments of failure and adversity and have come out the other side. I think that's valuable. I think having a spark like Usman Kroma and the confidence that he brings to that room is going to allow you to be competitive. I think Tommy Castellanos, I know he's got a bad rap for how it ended at Boston College, but he's also someone who's maximized his skill set, his size, and I think guys will be willing to play hard for him. And so those are things that give me confidence, is I think you've done a good job of assembling that type of maturity, like a Deuce Robinson, a Squirrel White. I think that just exists, not from top to bottom to the roster, but in a lot of large places of this roster. And that would then lead it to it being a likable team and one that shows signs of growth throughout the course of the season, which is really important for fan interest, for boosters, for people to see this going in the right direction. So ultimately, that gives me a level of confidence. I don't think this is a team that's going to quit. I know that's a concern that could present itself if things get ugly against Alabama and you lose some people. But again, I don't think that's likely. I think the more likely is a team that's going to battle. That's how it's been built. That's how it's been, fortified in the messaging throughout the offseason. And I think they've attracted players who, by and large, fit that bill. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I thought the coordinators wouldn't tolerate it. I also think there's a healthy amount of players who wouldn't tolerate it.
I forgot Jerry Wilson in that. I can't see him, Randy Pittman, those guys allowing it.
Tommy, I don't think Tommy would. I think Tommy's one of those guys that understands the clock may be expiring. He could potentially get a waiver. But in general, the clock's probably expiring for his collegiate career. Like, this is a go around. Let's go do something.
Yeah, I saw a cool moment from FSU's video that they released, the climb video, where Norvell talks to Randy Pittman about, he's like, if you do it, they'll follow, kind of thing. So definitely trying to instill that confidence and leadership with a guy like that. And I think, like you said, Brendan, I think Jerry Wilson on the other side of the ball is in a similar position of being able to hold other guys accountable and leading by example.
Luke's an example of that on the offensive line too. Luke Petitbon.
Yeah, Petitbon for sure. That all this creates a level of like fun intrigue for me for the season. Like, there are so many unknowns, all the ifs we mentioned earlier, and it's going to be a fascinating team to watch. I hope you don't get. I hope the break doesn't happen before the make. Like, I hope that you give yourself a chance to build on goodwill against Alabama, regardless of the final score. Like, hopefully the things that we can't quite measure, but you can see: effort, intensity, like hustle, those type of buzzwords. Like, hopefully those are real quantifiable things in our minds that we can see and say, okay, you're building there, and then you can carry it over through the rest of the season and then see, let the chips fall where they may and see exactly what you are. What makes you feel good as the season ends? I know, like, just every week there's a thread or someone asks, what if FSU's this record, how would you feel? If they're this, how would you? And it's just, to me, it's always like, it depends how it looks. 7-5, I would say, unless there's just a rash of injuries and a bunch of really bad breaks, like, not acceptable. You can't do 7 wins after 2 wins. You can't win 9 games in 2 years and think that's an acceptable standard for the amount of money that's been poured into this program. Caveat, I will see what it looks like, but what in general, guys, would let you, when we're in December, season's ending, regular season's ending, what makes you feel like, okay, like this under Mike Norvell is sustainable, or at least has the potential to be at this point?
As far as record,
doesn't necessarily have to be record. Like, if you want to put that into the answer, yes, like, I think people do want to know that, but like, you can provide your caveats here of what it needs to look like in getting to that record, I guess.
I mean, being highly competitive with at least 10 of your opponents. I feel like FSU is as good or better than 8 of their opponents, with like 7 and 8 in that list, the schools that are closest to them maybe being a Pitt and an NC State, for example. Then Miami would probably be 9 and Florida would probably be 10 if I'm ordering the teams. And I think FSU can compete with those teams, but needs to do more. Bama's really, really good, probably 11. I think Clemson's best team on FSU's schedule would be 12, and I just don't expect them to beat Clemson. And Bama, outside of being a first game and a new quarterback, doesn't feel like one they should win, but you never know. Sometimes out of the gate, things get interesting. More so to your question, though, for me, it's seeing a team that is consistently competitive, that does improve as the year progresses, and also seeing young players evolve and improve as players, and feeling like there's some roots put down within the foundations of the depth chart that allows you not to continue to have to do the 50 new players each offseason, because I just don't think that's something you can continually do and find success. I think it's something you can do if you have to reset, which you did after 2-10, but I don't think it's something you can do to build off of like 7-8 wins and then try to get to 9-10 wins and so on and so forth. I don't think that works personally.
Yeah, I think for me, you need to go 8-4 at the very least, in my opinion, to feel good about this season. And with the caveat being that you're competitive in all of your top 4 games of Clemson, Alabama, Miami, and Florida. And you need to win one of those games, in my opinion. That would make me feel like there is a future for Mike Norvell at Florida State. And I think if you do that, like, you have a shot to, retain the recruiting class you have right now and potentially grow on it. Obviously, if we're talking about having, restoring the confidence that he had, or we all had in him before last season, I think, we're talking 9 wins or more, in my opinion, if we're truly restoring that confidence. But I think as a baseline, you need to get to 8, you need to win one of those top 4 games, you need to be competitive against your higher level opponents.
It would be really tough for me to get back to that level of confidence post 23. To me, sustaining it is what would keep that level of confidence, and it was sustained. I mean, it would have to be multiple years of success to get back to what I thought it could have been after 22-23.
What if
Yeah.
they won like 11 games this year and they were just lights out and
That would be
everything?
phenomenal, and I think it would be a
But
great.
would you still have that
They would still need to come back and have a successful
Yeah,
season.
because I mean, I think we all now
Be
look
peaks
at
and valleys. There has to
Yeah.
be programs has to be, and I know it's tougher than it's ever been because of roster management and all the things that go
Sure.
with that. And that's not some like cop out. That's true for all programs, but it can't be peaks and valleys. It can't be. 2-10 is unforgivable. I don't feel like talking about it anymore, but like it happened. It's part of the story of the 5, now 6 seasons of him being here.
Yeah.
He would have to be very good in 6, very good in 7, and you'd have to feel like you're going in 8 and sustaining that success to get back to where I think I was at post 23.
So you're not willing to put out a contract extension till after year 8. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, I'm not.
I'm messing with you. You don't have to answer.
You know, I'm not a huge fan of giving future money to things that aren't, pretty ironclad.
Just knowing Chris's personality, financial investments, like the idea of this is probably the most horrifying thing that he could have is something he's emotionally invested in this program. Mike feels good, I think. I think that's something that I've picked up on the last since maybe after the second scrimmage. I think he feels good. And I think that means he probably thinks the offense is going to be good. If I had to just put different things together, I think he feels pretty good about the team. Just based on demeanor, the way he talks, he seems relaxed.
Yeah, I think so. I'd agree with that from sitting through multiple media sessions with him and just general way he carries himself. And I think he believes that their best version of themselves can be a highly competitive football team. I think he also feels like they have enough guys that are committed to what they're trying to achieve here. And he's talked about a lot of those guys. We've brought some of them up: Tommy Castellanos, Luke Pettibon, Randy Pittman. Defensively, I think Jason Jenkins is a guy that they like because of the effort he put in to get back and everything of that sort. Darryl Jackson's elevated himself as far as being willing to be vocal. Jerry is definitely vocal. Love Jerry. I think he likes the pieces on the chess table.
I do too. I get that feeling like that's a real thing for him. As we transition now into talk about the Alabama game real quick, Zach, let's talk about recruiting. This is a huge weekend for Florida State by design. I mean, it's a big time game, big atmosphere. Probably, I mean, it's just the way things have gone. It's the only assured like giant home game that you have. There might be other ones like Miami, at the end of this first wave of games, but this is one that's going to have a lot of recruits, some big time visitors. Let's touch base just on some of the big time 2026 guys and maybe a couple of the noteworthy 2027 ones as well.
Yeah, there's one OV for this weekend, official visitor. That's Ashari Charles, the 4-star edge rusher out of Venice High School. He's committed to Miami. Florida State was the first school to offer Ashari Charles all the way back in 2023, but they haven't really recruited him heavily to this point. It's kind of been a weird recruitment to follow, to be honest. FSU kind of reemerged into the picture back in like early July. They realized, they missed out on a number of their top edge rusher targets over the summer, so they kind of had to reset the board. And Ashari Charles is an in-state guy that they do have some, prior relationship with. But I do think that it's an uphill battle for them when it comes to just that relationship building. I think his camp probably would prefer if the communication was steady throughout his recruitment, right, instead of the peaks and valleys of it, if we want to reference back. But yeah, I mean it's going to be a big NIL recruitment. Texas Tech's involved. Miami, he's a Miami commit. There's other schools that are in the mix as well, SEC schools trying to flip him. So I've heard that, I mean, it's going to be a pretty hefty NIL price on his recruitment. And I think Florida State will have a shot. I think they definitely do need an edge rusher in this class. They don't have one committed. So that makes me think that they'll, potentially be willing to spend. But we'll see kind of where it goes. You move into the unofficial visitors list is, for 2026, you got to remember that almost all of these guys are committed. Top players are committed to their respective programs. So FSU is going to have a bunch of their commits back on campus. Jaden O'Neal, the quarterback commit, will be there. Devin Carter, Xavier Tiller, 4-star tight end, a number of other guys, 5-star cornerback Chauncey Kennan.
I think it's 17 or 18 commitments currently on the list. I know a guy like Jake Timmons is trying to figure out travel to make it too.
Chucky Kennan.
Yeah. So, there's, and I mean, the true, headliner in the 26 class on the unofficial visit list is DQ Forkba, the 4-star linebacker who was originally from the state of Georgia, was at IMG Academy, and is now transferred up to St. Francis in Maryland. He just had a good showing on national TV in week 1, rushing the passer a little bit. So, FSU is still involved there, despite recently flipping Isaiah Williams from Ole Miss, the 4-star linebacker out at Tavares High School. And Forkba's a guy that FSU clearly still wants to add. I don't know, the lengths that they'll go as far as like NIL, just because they already have 3 linebacker commits. But I do think that Forkba is a little bit more unique than the 3 other guys they have committed, and the fact that he's a pretty high level pass rusher. And I think that jack role, you could probably play him there a good amount from the linebacker position, from that Sam linebacker position. So it'd make a lot of sense for FSU to try to spend heavily there and try to add him. Florida's still involved, Michigan, a few other schools in the mix for DQ Forkba. And then a lot of the really high-end elite talent actually resides in the on this list actually resides in the 27 class, and that I think the headliner is Kavion Bryant. He's one of the top quarterback recruits in the 27 class, number 2 in the 24/7 Sports Composite, a 5-star player out of the state of Texas. He's a high-level football and basketball player. I think FSU's basketball program is involved to some extent with Kavion Bryant. And this is a prove-it game for FSU with Bryant. I think he's really giving Florida State a shot. They've done a good job of pitching him on his fit in Gus Malzahn's offense, as a highly athletic but also high-level passer. And I think that a win or a good game against Alabama would go a long way towards FSU's chances in that recruitment. And a few other 27 names of note: Mark Matthews, a 5-star offensive tackle out of South Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas High School. He is I believe, the number 1 offensive tackle recruit in the 27 class. Truly elite measurables, elite movement skills. He was also on national TV in week 1, actually playing DQ Forkba, I believe. They were playing whatever. Anyway, he was good in that game. And I think we were playing Mater Dei, but he was good in that game. And he's a guy that FSU's done a really good job with early on. Herb Hand has developed a good relationship with him. Miami's always going to be a factor, with him being in South Florida, but he has a national offer list, so it'll be a big time recruitment. Go check out the list on Noles 24/7. There's a number of other key names in both the 26 and 27 class, and even the 2028 class. 24/7 Sports recently released the first rankings for that class, and FSU has a bunch of high-level players in that class also making it to campus. So I think it'll be the most loaded visitor list of the season for FSU. I think the Miami game will also be pretty stacked. I've gathered a lot of names for that list as well to this point. So those are kind of the 2 marquee games for FSU, or home games for FSU from a recruiting standpoint.
Yeah, Hoops is involved with Kavion Bryant. They are interested. I think Texas and Texas A&M are 2 other big players in that recruitment, as far as I understand. Another 27 quarterback is Logan Flaherty, lower-ranked player in comparison to Bryant, but a guy that FSU has valued and been on board for a while. Just to add on the visitors, there's also 4 official visitors for Hoops coming in. All 4 4-star, top 247 type guys. Actually, more like top 150 guys. In Hoops, it's more important to be in that portion of the rankings. 4-star guard Colin Paul is coming in. Talented kid from West Palm Beach. Marcus Pondard, 4-star center, who's actually already committed to FSU, is among it. Kevin Thomas, who's at Montverde, a very talented young man, someone that they've been involved with for a good while. And he's just really looking forward to coming, getting a feel for the campus, everything, the environment, football game. He wants to enjoy all of it. And then Brandon Bass Jr., yes, the son of the former LSU player.
Go Pats Bass!
He
did not like passing the ball.
He Junior is a guy that Luke Laux has valued extremely highly since getting hired at FSU. When Luke was on the road doing some recruiting very early on in the process, Brandon and his father is two of the first people we went to see. Spent a great deal of time with him. He is a major priority target for FSU. LSU is also a major player there, as his father played there, and Purdue is the other school in the top 3 with him. So I would keep tabs on all 4 of those guys.
Chris, you know what grinds my gears?
What? A lot of things.
What I want to get into real quick before we finish this up with our Alabama talk. We get a lot of emails now at CBS from, I don't know if Paramount like PR or whatever, but just different stories to talk about. Do you, and I can't unsubscribe to them, so my inbox is just littered with it. Like, and the most recent one, I'm gonna turn it into content. Like
shows, those types.
No, like it's like this list of like different eye bag obsession revealed as Florida 3rd most searched skin concern, and that's like some PR world thing. And I've tried unsubscribing to it, but I want to say number 10 and the most searched for skin conditions in the United States, cold sores. Cold sores.
You hate cold sores?
I mean, I don't like cold sores. I don't want cold sores. I don't like the implication of cold sores. Number 1, bruises. 6 is ingrown hairs.
Hate it. Ingrown hairs are evil.
Puffiness is 4. I think eye puffiness. I got some of that sometimes. Blackhead's 8. Just going around the horn here. Stretch marks 9. Hyperpigmentation 7. Psoriasis 3. I don't know what keratosis.
Hyperpigmentation, like rosacea, like when you're older, your skin goes very red, for example.
I think it's just whiskey nose.
Wait, why do they send you guys this stuff?
I don't know. It's like all this all the time. I get this all the time.
They're trying to brainwash you.
Survey shows Gen Z distracted at work over safety fears. There was one in here about how people are afraid of AI taking over. Zach. I'm
not afraid. Everyone else is afraid.
But and he's going to be a friend to the robots and the machines.
Reporting for spam.
Brendan wishes the robot like good night and good morning.
No, I found out that wasted a lot of energy, but I still feel like it was like a worthwhile.
Robot's going to kill me because I made fun of it for not being able to spell Alabama correctly.
All right, Alabama, spelled Alabama. I wanted to make sure I got that right. I started it. FSU goes into this contest. Last check was 13.5 point underdog, 13 points as a home favorite. I think that's. Listen, we'll get into score predictions, but it's well earned at this point for Florida State. You're coming off a 2-10 season, 2-score underdog at home. That's where you're at. But there is a path to winning. There's a path to pulling off an upset. I don't think Alabama's unbeatable. I mean, they lost 3 times last season. They do have the benefit of some continuity, but they're breaking in a new quarterback. They've had a bunch of injuries in like the last week or so to get over. Actually, let's start there, Chris. We want to talk about some of their injuries that they've kind of had to deal with. There's a few key pieces that'll be out for this game. And for Florida State, less so going into the contest, at least as of Thursday morning as we're recording this.
Yeah, so 3 big key injuries for Alabama. First one was Jam Miller at running back, not expected to play. Miller, so they returned roughly 50% of their rushing attempts and rushing yards, but that included Miller in that number. If you take it out, I think it reduces like 18 and 16%. So that kind of speaks to like he was the workhorse that did return for them as far as running the ball. Because you got to
other than Jalen Milroe being
right, Milroe, which was a big piece of that puzzle. They also lost some backs like Justice Haynes, for example. So at running back, Richard Young or Daniel Hill is kind of the guys that are looked at as most likely getting the starting nod. Offensive guard, at specifically expectation of right guard, Jaden Roberts dealing with a concussion. Seen some talk that supposedly it's multiple concussions he's had, which is why it's taking longer for him to come back. It seems like Kalen DeBoer, head coach of Alabama, has called him questionable, but it seems like everybody that covers Bama does not expect him to play. So Gino Van DeMark is probably going to end up taking his spot. It will just be interesting because that's been a competition at the guard spots, as I understand it. Cam Dewberry is probably going to be the left guard starting, Gino at right guard, and then William Sanders is his backup. But it wouldn't shock me, if that's a position that like we're watching pregame to see who exactly are they putting in between like a Wilkin Formby and Parker Brailsford, who's their center and their right tackle. And then on the defensive side of ball, Tim Keenan was the big one that came out yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He's a veteran defensive tackle for them. Stats aren't eye-popping, but his impact on film is. He's a guy that creates just a lot of issues as far as absorbing people, taking on multiple guys, basically allowing other people to go do their jobs. He helps a guy like LT Overton at being at defensive end, or their Wolf outside linebacker, or an inside backer like Deontay Lawson, who's an extremely talented player. Keenan's kind of the guy that helps those guys do a lot up front in the sense of getting favorable matchups or knowing which lane they can choose to win in.
Yeah, he had an 85.5 PFF grade last year. It was third on their defensive roster.
Yeah, he went there. He was a heavy set guy when he got there out of high school, lost a good bit of weight, and he's evolved into a really good player with multiple years of experience. I mean, he's going to be a central piece of it. Our Bama site, when they did their projected depth chart, had James Smith as a backup there. Jeremiah Beeman and Edric Hill were the other side. So Jeremiah Beeman would have been starting beside Tim Keenan in a 4-man front. So it'll be interesting how they go, what they do with their front to kind of navigate not having Keenan, because they are the type, kind of like FSU will be this year, where they will show different fronts and use a lot of versatility in their front seven.
FSU's perspective for injuries, the ones that we know are out right now. Kevin Wynn is one dealing with the lower leg injury. I think he's out for probably a few weeks. Doesn't sound like anything long-term. And then LaWayne McCoy, wide receiver, who has missed most of camp, missed most of spring too with a different injury. So just had the injury bug the last 6 months or so. It's unfortunate because he's someone I think was going to vie for probably your either starting 5 wide receiver or probably be your top rotational piece. There's a guy who can play multiple spots. So he's working his way back. I think those are the only confirmed injuries right now. Squirrel White is going to be good to go by all indications. No green jersey yesterday. Sounds like he was full go. And FSU seems to be fairly healthy going into the contest, which is.
Yeah, I'm interested if Jabril Raw plays with basically a cast on his hand.
He's going to have to play with a cast on his hand, I think. That just means no interceptions, probably.
Yeah. Well, he's shown he can catch them with one hand. Just saying.
That'll be a nice little callback if it happens, Christopher. All right, so those are injuries. As we get into this game, I think the most obvious talking point when we're looking at personnel is Alabama's breaking in a new quarterback. One who talked about yesterday kind of dealing with butterflies and anxiety. That caught my ear a little bit, perked my interest.
Brendan's like, my people.
Well, more so, it's like I wouldn't want to be, I wouldn't bet on myself taking snaps as a starting quarterback. So I'm projecting, I guess, if you will. Well,
the good news for him is that he has just insanely good talent to throw it to and a very big offensive line to protect him.
And we're talking about Ty Simpson.
And should still be able to hand the ball off to capable people that can run the ball. So, like, I made an appearance on Cole and Mac yesterday and talked with them, and I said the path for FSU winning from a defensive standpoint is force Ty Simpson to stand in the pocket and have to throw, but also not give him a lot of time in said pocket. And that's a tall task both ways. One, stopping the Alabama run game, which will include Ty Simpson as a runner, while also being able to get home when he is in passing down situations and bothering him. Because if you don't bother him, he's got Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Hort to throw to a receiver who are all really freaking good. Williams and Bernard are both awesome. And Bernard is overcast by Williams because Williams was such a fabulous freshman, beyond Jeremiah Smith, the best freshman receiver in the country. And both of those two kind of rewrote the books for freshman receivers.
I was going to say, he might have been the best freshman wide receiver in the history of college football, if not for Jeremiah Smith.
But Bernard's awesome. I mean, Bernard's a high-level NFL talent who's a versatile piece who can do a lot of different things. One of you two recently referenced somebody comparing him to Deebo Samuel, for example. Like, I think that's interesting. Like, having watched him a little bit. And then Horton's a guy that came in from Miami who was productive there. Mm-hmm. Tight end is a position they use. Josh, I don't know how to say it pronounced correctly, but I'm going with Cuevas, is the projected starter for them. He's sort of new for them in the sense of being the guy at the position, but they always use that position to create some mismatches and some eye candy that allows their offense to do other things. And Mike Norvell actually referenced that, I think, on Wednesday, where he talked about some of the stuff that their tight ends will do to kind of mess with you.
defensively, well, their offensive line's full of badasses. I know they have some injuries.
Yeah.
We have 3 guys on Feldman's freaks list, right, Zach? Did you write that story yet?
Yeah, I did. Parker Brailsford, who Chris mentioned, is one of the best centers in the country. He's a little bit undersized, so if you're looking for a potential, matchup advantage for Florida State, having Darrell Jackson at nose tackle with his stature against a guy that's a little bit undersized and Brailsford could be a potential advantage for Florida State. But yeah, I mean, you look all over the O-line, left tackle, Caden Proctor, former 5-star recruit. I think he was number 2 on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. His vertical jump would have been higher than Colorado receiver LaJonte Webster last season if he went to the draft. So yeah, I mean, he's just a freak. And then the Jaden Roberts I believe also on that list, but we don't expect him to play like Chris said. But yeah, I mean their O-line is super stacked. I think that left side specifically apparently is the strength of that unit. If they can run behind that side and FSU can't stop their running game, that could alleviate a lot of pressure off Ty Simpson in his first start.
And then that defensive front is where it starts. I know, again, there's injury there, but Chris, let's talk. I mean, I know some national pundits I've listened to have said this might be the deepest defensive line in the country. Maybe not the most obvious star power, but just quality and multiple bodies that you can kind of roll in throughout the game in the country.
Yeah, I think them and Clemson are the 2 that are probably most in that discussion, and FSU gets the luxury of playing both.
Yay.
So per PFF, I wrote this in the 247 Alabama that people can read on the site. Alabama is one of just 4 programs with top 10 units on the defensive line at linebacker and in the secondary, so all 3 units. More notably, the Crimson Tide is the only team with a top 10 player at every defensive position. The other thing about them, 10 players saw 400 or more snaps last year that returned to them. They return a great deal of production, 82% of their interceptions, 63% of their tackles, 62% of their tackles for loss, 54% of forced fumbles, 50% of their sacks, 46% of their fumbles recovered. So again, tons of talent coming back, multiple years in the same system. They allowed 17.4 points per game last year, but that dipped to 12.8 over the last 6 contests last year. That group's really freaking good. I think FSU's offense is good and capable, and it is a hell of a challenge with what they're about to go against. As far as individual players, Keenan would have been one I certainly would have talked about, but he's out. LT Overton at Bandit D-end is a guy who was a extremely highly regarded recruit, went to Texas A&M, kind of didn't do a whole lot for a couple of years. Last year started kind of showing some of the signs of what he can be. Deontay Lawson, I think, might be arguably the best player on defense without Keenan as far as the impact that he can make in games. He's just extremely good. He's an inside backer for them. And then their secondary is very talented. Deuce Robinson referenced Damani Jackson. He's a USC transfer, so him and Deuce used to go against each other at USC. So he's familiar with him there. Very talented guy. Xavier Brown's a guy who really broke out last year for them.
That's a true freshman.
Yeah,
CFB 25 legend.
Yeah, their secondary, I think, is not talked about enough. It's really good.
Yeah, and Keon and Bray Hubbard are both badass safeties.
Bray Hubbard had an 89.5 PFF grade last year to lead the team, and I think he was on 400 something snaps, so he wasn't even a full-time starter.
Yeah.
So now he'll move into full-time starter role. Keon Sabb was super impactful at the other safety.
How did our boy Red Morgan do?
Morgan played some last year. I think he played more early in the season and less later on, I believe. But I remember hearing good reports before the season about him.
This speaks to their depth of talent as a team, and especially on defense. Their backup safeties are Zay Mincy and Ivan Taylor, 2 guys that were extremely highly regarded recruits in the state of Florida. Zay out of Daytona, and Ivan was out of, I think, West Orange, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Zay was the guy that FSU wanted to push on and push that 2023 season into parlay that into maybe getting him.
Yeah. That was the LJ McRae, alongside that one. Yeah.
I think the key against Bama's defense is twofold. One, stick with running the ball. Even if it's not working a great deal, one, shorten the game to a degree. Just keep trying to move it. Stay secure with the ball. Do not give it away. And 2, it's Tommy Castellanos making plays that aren't designed to be made in the way he makes.
This is
you're never win within the margins in that regard.
Yeah.
Was that Zach?
I was going to say this is literally if you had to characterize how Brendan plays in college football 26, this is his game plan going into any
Sam
game
Hawk
that he
football
plays.
when it's not generic run.
That's outdated information, I feel like.
Yeah, but when you feel like you're the underdog, you always want to shorten the game.
I'm always the underdog. The amount of times I've been screwed and it only happens to me, guys, is just. And by the way, today we're all Dane Draper fans. The dynasty begins as him and Zach face off in a national championship game in year 3. Zach pretty much just, let's just be honest, he lucked out because of that glitch. I posted on Twitter. I don't want to undermine what Zach's done in building a great roster, but none of it happens if the glitchiest wide receiver drop that the game's ever presented happened. And none of this happens. He doesn't make the playoffs. He doesn't go on this amazing tear of 3 state national championships, recruiting gifts galore. No. So we're all Dane Draper fans when Michigan State and UNC face off at 3:30 p.m. today.
3-peat, baby. 3-peat.
But yeah, Alabama's really good. The keys to winning. I mean, I think so much of like this is just like, is Simpson adequate? And if he's average and manages the game well for Alabama, it's gonna be tough. But if you can find ways to get them flustered, and this is their whole season, I think too. They have so much talent. Like if they get average to above average quarterback play, they're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah.
But if that's a bugaboo for them, if that's a limitation, then you have a chance. And that's, you talk about getting someone at the right time. Like I would much rather face this quarterback in game 1 in Doak, loud crowd, than a month from now. I think this is, if you have a chance, that's going to be kind of how it's presented. Gus Malzahn's going to have to dial up some wild shit. He's capable of it. He runs more trick plays. I was researching it than anyone in the country. It's just over the last 10 years, like Gus is crazy. Gus is wild. Gus does some crazy stuff. But you need that. I think you need some of that to win in a game where you're outmanned and outmatched. Do you want to do score predictions and then get out of here?
Yeah, real quick. I watched Kev Little's video, which is an awesome video, scouting Kalen DeBoer and just what they do offensively and defensively. What I noted from the videos, apparently teams that force Alabama to dink and dunk their way down the field and avoid mistakes have the best success. And that was referenced by Alabama's game against Oklahoma last year, then Washington's game against Arizona State 2 years ago when they went to the national championship. So
Tony White's defense doesn't give up a lot of big plays generally.
Don't sell out and try to make the big play. Make them make the play. I think one of the biggest keys of the whole game is winning one-on-ones on both sides. FSU is going to be challenged as far as their receivers having to go make one-on-ones, and then defensively, when Ryan Williams or Bernard are in a space to make a play by themselves, you got to deny it. They're going to make some plays, but you got to win more than you lose. From
a 20-yard catch can't be a broken tackle that turns into 60
right.
yards. Right? That's kind of you can't. You got to win. You got to win head and yards in this game. Just all the stereotypical stuff it takes to pull off an upset. I think that's kind of what we're documenting. We don't expect FSU to just go and assert itself. That'd be really cool. That would make us reshift the way we think about this team. I just don't think anyone has that on their bingo card for this particular opponent. It just doesn't exist to me.
One last note before we hit score predictions, at least from my end, is Connor Talty is going to be their starting kicker. Apparently had a pretty shaky scrimmage in the preseason for them.
Ooh.
So just working an eye on. They're breaking in new specialists, both as kicker and punter. Their punter comes from
Florida State.
I think their punter comes from the FCS level. Actually, no, he's a Division II kid that moved up from Colorado School of the Mines. Extremely good punter at Colorado School of Mines. So I think they'll be sound in that regard. They were extremely good in that regard last year as a team. In the sense,
is that like a college is actually in a bunch of like mines?
I have no clue, dude. The only colleges I've been into in Colorado are Colorado and Air Force.
Colorado is beautiful.
Yes.
Does not. Oh, you know what? It's not in mines, but it is really well situated in between a bunch of plateaus. So look at that. It's actually really pretty. Cool. I would have not gone to Alabama if I were him. I would just stayed there. But that's just me. Score predictions. Let's go. I gotta get going.
I'll go first. Alabama 31, FSU 21. I think that FSU covers the spread, but and I think they keep it close until the late third quarter. But Alabama's just depth of pretty elite talent separates them late in the game. That FSU plays pretty well in. I just think the talent disadvantage is too much here.
I was going to go 31-20. I reserved the right to change that, but Alabama 31-20 is where I land.
We're all pretty close. I had Alabama 34, Florida State 21. I do feel like Florida State will be competitive for a large chunk of this game. I do, but
I think
too
it
many
starts
players, too much
slow.
depth.
I think it starts slow for both teams to a degree. I think maybe FSU tries to take a big shot very much right out of the gate.
Gus does love trick plays on the first drive. He does love pulling something. That is a thing. So.
That is certainly a possibility, but I think for whatever reason, I think we could see like a 7-3 type of first quarter with 4 or 5 possessions between the two of them.
Well, that would be, you would take that if you're Florida State.
Yeah, hang around
Curious
till
to see what they
halftime,
do.
make a game down the stretch.
Yeah, put some game pressure on Alabama. Curious to see what they do with tempo as well. Gus Malzahn likes to go fast, but as an underdog, you kind of yo-yo a little bit there. That'll be interesting. Help with some of the depth stuff you don't have on defense. It's going to be fascinating. We get to see Mike Norvell as a game manager and not as the play caller. How does he work that? There's going to be a lot of cool things that we follow and pay attention to. So follow along with us, if you will, at Knowles247.com. Listening to On the Bench. Trey, Kev, AB will be on Saturday evening for the instant reaction. They'll be on our YouTube feed as well live. So check that out. Thank you for the patronage. 75% off today. If you've been on the fence today and today only, Chris?
I think it's actually for a couple of days, but definitely take advantage of it today.
But yeah, 75% off annual subscription. It's a tough deal to beat. Come check out the website that had the depth chart like 90% correct, and you wouldn't have been shocked.
They were so shocked.
So much projecting depth charts, projecting.
But it really hurts, Brendan, that if you were shocked.
A podcast of projections. It does. I don't know what that says about me. All right. Talk to you guys later.